Hi, Baldo. I'm Allie's mom.
Oh, awesome. So where are you at?
I'm in Houston.
Oh, okay, cool. I'm from Houston too.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I just got back from Houston. I was there for visiting my dad on Sunday.
Oh, nice. What part of Houston?
He lives in the Heights.
Okay, in town.
Yeah,
Nice. Awesome, you guys. Well, we'll go ahead and get started. I put record, so everything will be on YouTube and for everybody else to see in the group. Hopefully, more people can join.
cool.
Okay, so to start off with, this is Baldo. He is the COO of MSW Lounge and CEO of MSW Nutrition. So you guys met Jonathan the other day talking about inflammation, and this is his business partner. Is that what you'd call?
Yeah, we're business partners. Well, I mean, he's my best friend too.
Best friends and business partners, and their business is booming. They it's this holistic lounge here in Austin that does vitamin supplements and injections and IVs and just a whole holistic wellness space. It's really awesome here in Austin. And Baldo's an expert in fasting and meditation and yoga. And so I'll let him introduce himself, but super excited to have him here today.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. Ellie gets to come into the office quite a bit, and it's fun to always chat with her. So I was glad to be able to do this for y'all too, because she's told me what you guys are doing. So I'm like, yeah, I think I can provide some information on two subjects that I'm very passionate about, which is not eating and meditation, right? And so I guess I can just dive into it. We'll start with the fasting part because I wanted to do also like a quick 5 to 10 minute meditation with you guys at the end. So then that way we can just, make it a smooth transition instead of having to go back again to the subject to cover. But just to give you guys an idea of how I began fasting was actually a long time ago. I tried doing like a 24-day, like where I was like eating 24 days, for 24 hours, and then like not eating for 24 hours. And just because it was something that I read, and it worked out just fine for me, other than like the fact that it was a weird lifestyle thing, because I would always have to tell my friends like, I can't go out to eat tonight, or like I can't hang out with you guys because I'm not eating. So there's that aspect. But if you guys have heard anything about like ketogenic diets or anything like that, I mean, it plays into that part as well too. But the thing that really got me into fasting now is the health benefits from like an anti-aging perspective. And then people always ask me about like weight loss associated with that as well too, and it's like, yeah, I mean, it can help with that, but that's usually not my reasons for doing that. I started getting into like even long-term fasting, which I'm going to touch into as well too, because I wanted to heal a knee of mine without having to do any surgery, and I'll get into that as well too. But basically, there's a term that I'd like for you guys to kind of keep in mind, and if you guys are welcome to go and do some research on it. But the term of it is called autophagy. It's spelled AUTOPHAGY, and it's a pathway that we have. There's two main pathways that I'll reference. One of them is called M as in mom, mTOR, which is a growth pathway, and it's like it's an anabolic pathway. It helps you grow. And then there's autophagy, which is completely the opposite. It's kind of cannibalic. And if you are familiar with that word, yes, it means kind of like eating yourself in a good sense. In a good sense, our bodies are very, very smart, and it's really neat to get into that. And the cool thing about fasting is that you can activate those regenerative properties of autophagy that I'm going to go into. Whether you're doing like small term fasting, or even like just intermittent fasting, or even like like I said, people will do 3 to 6 day water fasts as well too, and all they're doing is consuming water for the health benefits. So to start with a familiar term, talking about like the intermittent fasting, and then I'll touch into ketogenic as well too, just because it helps with that. A lot of the reasons people started doing intermittent fasting is if you go back to I don't know, to like, caveman days, there is a whole philosophy, or just, I mean, just a way of life that they would go through famine because they'd run out of food, and they'd have to go, go hunt before they can eat again, or hunt, bring the food back to their areas of living, and then, cook it and then eat. So there was a lot of periods of that, especially like during the winter months and whatnot. And so there was this whole idea that our bodies weren't used to like just consuming like food at all times, definitely not like 3 or 4 times a day. And when it comes to terms of like evolution, just in general, I mean, you guys that it takes forever for us to evolve into something else. It's really hard to believe that all of a sudden within like 2,000 years, we are now supposed to eat so much all the time. And so it becomes a metabolic inefficiency. And so that's kind of where the idea of like, why is this even beneficial? Like this goes against everything that I've ever heard about before. And in reality, it's like, well, it doesn't go against everything that our bodies have experienced or over our existence, if that makes any sense. Right. And so it's really neat to get into, make sure that I get my notes out here before I miss out anything. But to talk about to intermittent fasting, what that means is that people will I'll do that. 3 different things about fasting. So there's like intermittent fasting, and that's where people will eat for a certain window, right? For it could be where they're eating for 8 hours and then fasting for 16 hours every day, right? And that could be either like they just consume as much as possible for those 8 hours, or they break those hours where they eat for an hour and wait another 2 hours and eat for another hour, or kind of snack through those 8 hours. And that's one way to do it. And then there's variations of that. So some people can do like, well, 20 hours of fasting, 4 hours of eating, or 18 hours of fasting and 6 hours of eating. And then there's also the second way, like I mentioned earlier, that my first experience was to do 24 hours of like eat all you want all day and then just not eat for 24 hours, and then just kind of alternate. And then the third thing that I like to reference is extended fasting. That's where you do like 3 to 6 days of only consuming water and maybe some salts. And for me, that's more of a healing thing. So to give you guys an idea of what I like to do is like once a month, I'll do 3 days, and then every like 6 months or so, I do 6 days. So the science behind that is that why did it help my knee get some repair properties, is because you tend to like, whenever you're going through like, before you hit a starvation mode, you get into a point where like your body starts to add tissue so it can get nutrients to be able to operate, to get energy. And it's very smart from the sense that it goes and eats tissue that is not serving us. So like if there's a damaged knee, for example, in my eye, or like sometimes people have shoulder problems, or even like gut bacteria that just continues to give people problems for one reason or another. And it's like, well, a good thing to do with the bacteria is just starve it so that we can regenerate it. And around 2 to 3 days, there's like a nice little stem cell regeneration that happens there. And so that's kind of the idea there, is that you want to create that. There's a nice little window of like, hey, we're eating bad tissue, but at the same time, we're regenerating. And there's plenty of things that we can look for to say like, okay, well, now it's getting dangerous where it's eating like good tissue, and we don't want that. And so there's coaching that can be taught through that as well too. But even just doing like 14 hours of fasting and 10 hours of eating, which is for me, when I speak to women, that's the most I ever recommend they can do fasting for. It's just because female hormones tend to like go, they just change so much more than for men, right? And so for men, it's easy for just say, this is what I'm doing for the rest of the life or for the rest of this year, and they're okay. And for females, it should always alternate, especially during like different times of the cycles. But 14 hours is usually what I recommend for women. And then I also recommend that they actually do a little bit more carbs and sugar than I would recommend for a male, because a lot of times with these type of lifestyles or diets, if you will, it's always like given like just cut out all the sugar, and that's also not that's also for me not beneficial for most people, especially for females. And people always ask me why would that be, and yeah, one of them has to do with the hormone cycles, and then the other thing has to do also with going back to, once again, evolution wise, even whenever there was famine and men would go out to go hunt, it was usually females that would stay back with the kids, and they would still graze on berries. Anything that was like left over for grazing was left for them, because it was important to nurture the kids and to be able to like breastfeed them and whatever not. So anything leftovers was left to them. So there's always more carb intakes for females, which is a lot of times when I speak to women about that, they're like, hell yes, I get to do that. But that's what I wanted to touch on that. And when it comes down to like for example, like keto, part of like fasting helps with that. It helps with getting into a ketosis state where people are burning more fat for fuel, which in turn can help with like weight loss and with just insulin regulation. And I believe John spoke about insulin regulation last week as well too. But all those are just like different tools that can help with just the metabolic system that we operate with. Let's see. So from that, all the talking that I just did there, I want to see if there's any questions before I move on to like some meditation as well too. And I'm pretty sure there will be.
I have a question.
Sure.
Hi. So I know like Jimmy Kimmel and a lot of celebrities
Sure.
do the fast, have Bryan Cranston, and they will not eat for a full 24 hours, and they do this every week. One day they do not eat. What do you think of that type of fasting?
So where they just let me get this right. So they're not doing where it's like 24 hours eating, 24 hours not eating. It's just like they pick one day where they don't.
One day, and they say they always pick a busy day where they're working a lot or something like that, which obviously they're working all the time, so I'm sure it's quite easy to get your mind off of it. But yeah, they once a week, they pick a day where they don't eat. And I think it's a full 24 hours.
Sure.
I don't know, but I mean, it's every week. What do you think of that?
I think there's some benefits to that. So like, for example, like this past weekend, I went home to go visit my dad for Father's Day. And I just decided, like, you know what, I don't care, whatever gets served, I'm eating all the things. For the most part, I keep a ketogenic diet, but this weekend I was like, whatever. And so like today I decided, well, I'm just gonna do a 24-hour fast because I ate a lot of things that I'm not used to eating. So I wanna make sure that my body fully processes all that, because I don't want it to be stored like in my liver where it can cause some damage in the end. Now you might say like, yeah, but you're pretty healthy. That's probably not going to happen. It's like, and that's true. But at the same time, it's like, well, I just don't want to risk it. I want to keep my liver as optimal as ever. But the benefit of that is that you train your body to be able to be very efficient with whatever you give it. So how can I say, so for example, like if you give your cells, if you're feeding constantly, right, there's no reason for any cell to get the most out of that nutrition, because like as far as like 100% efficiency, because it's like, well, I can just kind of like half-ass it because I'm going to get more food anyways, and we'll be at full capacity anyways. So the idea is that I call it cellular training, where it's like you teach your cells to like, hey, I need to get the most out of this, out of every single nutrition that I get out of it, any single nutrient that I get in my body, because who knows if I'm going to eat again or when I'm going to eat again. And instead of giving your body the idea that that like, it doesn't really matter. I'm always going to be doing more. I'm always going to be getting more. We can, it doesn't really matter how efficient I am. I can always store things if I want to, or I can't store things if I don't want to. The body usually does store anyways, and so it kind of tends to store them as fat, unfortunately. But the problem with especially like processed foods is what I was worried about this weekend, is that the body tends to like store it because it doesn't recognize it. Right. So it says, we're going to put this aside because I do recognize all this other stuff that I am eating. I'm going to process this and I'll get back to that whenever I have time or whenever we're done with all this stuff. The problem is that we never give it the chance to go back to that stuff that it's not recognized because we're feeding it again. And then it continues doing the same thing where it's like, well, let's store this because I recognize this. And then we'll just wait till I can get back to that. And then it's like, we feed it again. And it's like, well, now we just continue to store things that it doesn't recognize. And so a lot of times whenever people haven't done that, and I'm sure probably John talked about liver detox, things come up where like people start to break out and they just feel like super tired at first because it's like stuff that's been stored there forever that it finally got to, and then you just don't know how it's going to react. So that happens with fasting too. Whenever someone's whenever someone's doing like a 1 day or 2 day or even a 3 day fast for the first time, stuff that's been stored there forever, how old it is, what it came from, who knows. So people saying things, first time they fast, they tend to experience these either breakouts or just complete fatigue. And that's different than from the fatigue that someone will feel from like not eating for 3 or 4 days. It's more like, dude, I'm just like, because it's more like waves of like, what the fuck was that? Like, it was just like, I just feel extremely exhausted, as opposed to like, I haven't eaten anything, I'm kind of tired, I probably should like kind of pace myself, right? And so, which is a little different, but I think that it's a good idea. Whenever I travel, I tend to just like not, that's when I tend to do like fast, especially the first day, because a big benefit of fasting is gut bacteria regeneration. I like to do a 6-day fast every 3 months or so at the change of the season, basically. So that way I can regenerate new gut bacteria. It's prepared for the foods of that season. And then I just never experienced allergies because of that, especially like in places with Austin where they're always like changing, because you tend to adapt, right? And so it's kind of like you're growing it with whatever is coming, as opposed to like a mixture of a bunch of different things.
Cool. Thank you.
Yes, but I think it's great. I think it's also not easy to just like say, oh, I'm gonna start doing this now. And I think that people should coach whenever they're gonna take on something like that, because it can be weird. And it should be weird. Anything else? Any other question on that?
I was gonna ask if you could explain who like would definitely, I know like I feel like everyone would benefit from fasting, but people like who are insulin resistant or diabetes, why that's so effective. Intermittent fasting has been so effective.
Yeah, so insulin resistance, right? I think that the big I guess problem in our country is sugar, because it spikes insulin, right? And insulin gets spiked and cortisol gets spiked at the same time, which means that we experience stress in times when we're not necessarily supposed to be stressed. You find people getting stressed about things that like, I don't even know why I'm stressing out about this, but it's just a reaction, right? It's a chemical reaction that happens in us. The benefit of like a ketogenic diet, right? We talked about like, it is the insulin regulation, right? Because you tend to feed off of fat, and so that insulin, I guess the insulin spikes aren't happening up and down because you're just staying here the whole time, and so there's a lot of benefits. I know that John speaks about this all the time, so he might have mentioned about the fact with brain, when you talk about like things with like Parkinson's or Alzheimer's, a lot of that is tied to like a type 3 type of diabetes, right? Because it's kind of like there's just so much spiking going on that your brain turns to mush. Well, it happens everywhere in your body. It just happens to be way more detrimental in your brain, because obviously it's sending all the signals, it's receiving all the signals. But if the communication's being messed with because it's happening up here, then who knows how your body's going to react, right? And so that's part of it. But for me, I think that who can benefit from this? Yeah, I think that anyone can benefit from a sort of from some aspect of calorie, calorie deficiency type of diets, just because yeah, you're, once again, it goes back to like you're training your cells, you're training your body to get the most out of it in a very efficient way, to get the most out of any nutrition or any lifestyle that you're implementing in a very like controlled way, as opposed to like you just, especially these days with there's so much processed food and who knows what natural flavors means or what they've done. So you just never know when your system's going to spike, especially with insulin. But that, I think for me, that's the biggest benefit is just that you're going to get some great results, which one, by the way, insulin and cortisol tend to flow together. So if for some reason, so if you're controlling your insulin, then you're also controlling your cortisol, which is going to help your adrenals, which once again, cortisol is a stress hormone. So then that just means that you'll be more relaxed. I just finished coaching this one girl, I think you might know Katie, right? And she talked about how she's like, I just never been like, she did a 4-day fast because she's trying to get rid of some gut bacteria that's been affecting her with like UTIs and all that. And she's like, I've never been more relaxed in my life right now. And it's fantastic because now I'm more aware of all these things. She's like, she prays a lot. And she's like, I feel like I'm more connected now because I'm aware of what's going on. And so there's a lot of those type of benefits as well too. For me, for my meditation, whenever I do meditation daily, whenever I'm on an extended fast, I feel like I drop quicker into my meditations and I just feel more connected, and I can feel like the energy's like, even a couple miles down. It's pretty interesting to have that. So I think awareness, and if anything, is just like a cool little challenge to give your body, because it is very powerful. And sometimes it doesn't do everything that it can do because we're just so triggered by all those chemicals that we constantly put in it. And I think that it's the discipline, right? That I think that when it comes down to just disciplines in general, there's always a benefit to that. If anything, at least awareness. Yeah. Cool. Any other questions before? And please give me the questions, but if not, I'll move on to some meditation. Wait, I lost audio.
Oh, oops, my bad. Someone said in the chat, Marta said, if you stop eating at 6 every day, you would fast until 9 a.m. the next day.
Ooh, that's a good question. That would be 14. That would be 13 hours. That would be
13.
12 and 3. That would be 15 hours. That's one way to do it. I mean, so there's no right answer to that, Marta. I mean, I think that that's something that I like to talk about, how people like do enjoy being told like just do this. But for me, I do enjoy the process of figuring out what works best for me for you. That would be a 15 and 9, like 15 hours of fasting, 9 hours of eating. That's not bad, right? For me, once again, I would say for females, you shouldn't do more than 14 hours. So in this case, you would eat at 8 a.m. But and then stop at 6 p.m. as well too. And it's like, well, I kind of do that already. But sometimes what you'll notice is that, yeah, but you're probably snacking before that or afterwards. And then what are the foods that you should stop eating there as well too? Because I would say keep it more fat, especially, in general, I always say just keep it more fat, more good fat. But I think that would be fine. The one thing I do want to make a comment on, and this goes for just ketogenic diets as well too, is that whenever females are going through like a cycle, like a week before their cycle, if you're getting sugar cravings, I would just honor that, because that your body's asking for something, especially when you're about to have a big drop in your sugar and blood sugar. I would just say make sure that it's good sugar, berries or even yams or sweet potatoes instead of like just processed sugars. I just try to stay away from processed sugars in general anyways. But in that case, yes, you would stop at 6 p.m. and start again at 8 a.m. and you would see a lot of benefits. I think that you would also sleep better. I think that especially if you're going to bed like 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. and you stopped eating at 6 p.m., I think that you'd have some pretty deep sleep as well too. I think that that's the first thing that you'll notice. and what type of salts do you add when doing your water fast? They do sell some electrolyte salts that are just the salts, just like on Amazon. But honestly, for me, I just tend to grab some, either like a Topo Chico that has like some sodium, some potassium, and some just like regular, I don't know what else does it have, but and magnesium. But I just, if I don't have that, then I'll just put some like Himalayan salt on my hand and just lick that off, just because it'll settle my stomach, and then I know that I'm not breaking my fast technically. And once again, my bigger worry, people always ask me about like, hey, does eating such and such break your fast? And if it doesn't have calories, then no, it doesn't break your fast, but it would break the autophagy pathway, which is like, once again, for me, that's the most beneficial part about fasting is, hey, it's going to eat away at the bad tissue so you can regenerate good tissue as well. And did John talk about NAD last week at all, or 2 weeks ago? I didn't hear you.
Sorry, very little. He
Yeah.
just mentioned it.
It's not too important, but NAD is another, it's a supplement that can be taken intravenously. That I'll explain this because this is kind of an important role that fasting and autophagy plays. So if you guys have ever heard of the idea that like when someone has like an injury, like a break or a fracture, sometimes they'll even say, it's probably better, it would have been better if you just broke it, because your body will start to your body will start to heal better, quicker, as opposed to like a fracture just tends to linger. And it plays into a very similar effect, because cells tend to do the same thing. There's sometimes, we regenerate cells all the time. As we age, our ability to regenerate our cells maybe becomes less and less, but it always keeps happening. The problem is that sometimes we have cells that are not fully functioning, but they're also not completely dead, so they don't regenerate themselves. They're very inefficient cells, right? So that's kind of like a chronic injury kind of thing. They're just staying around, and they're still playing some sort of role, but they're not very efficient. And then that's why people get that same injury. So the idea there is like, you can supplement with NAD. You can do something like a fast, an extended fast, to get into autophagy, to really like kill off those cells so so our bodies can regenerate them, right? And so now whenever it goes into starvation, then yeah, that's the point where like, hey, not only are we eating those bad cells, but like that's not enough, we're starting to eat some good cells, and then that's when you can create damage. But that's why I would say, make sure you're doing some sort of coaching or some accountability, because there's plenty of signs that show that like, hey, now we're going past that point that's dangerous. An easy one is like people's tongue tends to get black pretty quickly whenever that starts to happen. If you do a 24-hour fast, can you have tea or coffee? The answer to that is yes. Actually, coffee helps you, both coffee, caffeine actually in general, helps you get into autophagy quicker, and the efficiency of it. Personally, I don't like to do it because if you guys follow me, I'll always share these type of tips, but I don't know if you saw it, Ellie, last time I was doing a 3-day fast, and 24 hours in, I just stopped because I usually do a caffeine fast as well too, just to help, just because I want to do that as well too. But I decided on this time to not do a caffeine fast, and it's just like revved me up like way too much, and I was just super hungry and I couldn't take it anymore, and I have to stop, because I was starting to get headaches, and which is interesting because like I've done a caffeine fast and a water fast and not gotten headaches, yet this time when I was doing a regular fast but not fasting from caffeine, I was getting all sorts of headaches. But there's plenty of research that shows that yes, it does help, and some people would even suggest that you should do some tea and some coffee. I just couldn't. I also don't stop working out when I do my fasting, so that also might be an issue of like why I got just too revved up by doing those things. But it wouldn't break your fast, and it wouldn't break your autophagy pathway. So the answer to that would be yes. So, but just be cognizant of how you react to it, because it might just be too much. Anything else? No? Good? All right, cool. Well, let's move on to the next. Yes. Was there a question coming? Maybe not. All right, let's get into meditation. So, meditation, right? For me, it's probably one of my favorite things to do on a daily basis is my meditation. Just to give you guys a little history of my meditation. I'm a salesperson. I've done sales all my life. My meditation practice started as a visualization practice, which means that I used to sit to visualize what I wanted to create in, like, let's say at a sales event, and we would have goals and and I wanted to visualize. If I had I want to sell $5,000. I used to sell Cutco knives for those of you that know Cutco. It's like if I want to sell $5,000 worth of Cutco today, I just need to visualize that and really understand how it feels to sell that amount that I've never sold before. And I think that the hack, if you're trying to feel something that you've never felt before, is to just feel grateful. And so I would try to do that. It's like to visualize the number that I wanted to hit that I've never hit before, and then just feel very thankful that I finally did it, and maybe like high five my friends, and how those high fives touching people's hands would feel, and the excitement that would feel. And many times it would come down to like the last second, and I was like, I don't understand, like I'm so far from this goal, and somehow someone would just walk up and be like, yeah, we're going to do this after all, and we would hit it like to the cent. And so it became a very powerful tool for me to just do meditation. And since then I've always implemented in different parts of my life. I took a yoga certification program because it felt like a movie meditation, and I got really into yoga. And to this day, I haven't stopped practicing yoga for, I think, maybe now 6 years. But my favorite part is the meditation part. There's so many benefits to it. And again, when I'm doing my fasting, and then I'm also doing my meditations, I feel I get into deeper meditations, and I get a clearer picture of what I want to accomplish. But yeah, there's plenty of benefits when it comes down to, once again, insulin regulation, because of the cortisol benefits as well too. Like, you're just lowering your stress, and you're thinking about the thoughts that you're actually thinking. You're aware of those thoughts. And then you can like dissect them with like, are these thoughts even good for me? Are they serving me still? And if not, then okay, how can I choose a different thought pathway? For me, my meditations, especially the ones in the morning, they kind of serve as a calibration. And what I mean by that is that I become aware of how my energy is. And one of the meditations I like to do, even if I only have like 2 minutes, like for example, this morning I got up in a rush, and I was like, I'm going to take at least my 2 minutes, and I'm going to tune into how I feel my energies. And I kind of like to check in on different parts of my bodies, and I try to feel like, well, is around my stomach, does that energy feel a little bit more on the left or a little bit more on the right? Sometimes it feels twisted. And the goal is to like just to be aware of that, so I can untwist it, or so I can center it. So that way, throughout the day, if I notice, or not that I'll notice, I will notice because I did this. But if something just throws me off, someone says something that I doesn't agree with what I feel, or just doesn't make me happy, then I become aware pretty quickly, because I can feel that balance that I set in the morning is now a little bit off, and then I can, decide whether do I want to respond to this person in a weird way, or in a mean way, or in an upset way, or do I want to just walk off? But at least I recognize it, as opposed to like just reacting. And for me, that's the biggest benefit, just because it's just that awareness. But as far as like when it comes down to like people ask me all the time, well, how do you get into a meditation practice, or how do you meditate, or people will say like, I'm just not good at meditation. I mean, if you haven't heard this already, it really is true. Like, there is no wrong way to meditate. I think that if you feel like the goal is to just silence your mind, I guess that's one of the goals, but it doesn't mean that you failed if you didn't accomplish that. Because I mean, even with a daily meditation practice, there's plenty of days where I just can't shut the mind. I think that the coolest thing to do about that is that pick a thought or an image that you can bring back to, so that way as soon as you catch yourself thinking about this other thing or a million other things, and you can say, well, no, that's fine that I'm thinking all those things, but I'm choosing to think about this one thing, this intention, or just this thought, or just this happy feeling that I wanted to go back to. And I think that's the practice, is that maybe at some point you just get better at, like, if it takes you 5 minutes to recognize it, or if it takes you like 30 or 50 thoughts to recognize it, to bring it back to the one thought, maybe you just get better where, like, you just do it in 20 words, or in 10 words, or in 1 minute. But I don't think that it ever stops. I don't think that it ever stops where, like, my mind's is thinking about all these things. I think that you just become more aware, and that you become better at setting an intentionality of where you want to bring your thoughts back. Because I think that I'll share I'll share my affirmations or at least the 4 foundational affirmations that I do every morning, and that's the one thing that I always say, is that to myself, is like, every day and every way I'm getting better and better. A second thing that I say is that I'm not my thoughts, right? And so I'm the master of my thoughts, and I'm not my thoughts, and I am the captain of my energy. So I get to choose what thoughts I do give energy to, and because of that, I can create anything I set my mind to. And so those are and then I have different things that I want to focus on every day, but those are my 4 foundational affirmations before I actually sit down for my meditation. But it's very powerful, and it's a lot of fun, and there's plenty of benefits just from regulating and from being aware of where your energy is flowing, how it's flowing, so that way you can then master that. Once again, at least be aware, and then master what you want to accomplish throughout the day and throughout your emotions too. But I'll open it up for questions there as well. Yes, and please use those affirmations. I've kind of adapted them from I don't know, just from different books that I've read, and they just work for me. I think that they're good foundations just to remind me of like, we're in control of our lives, and if anything, at least of how we feel about ourselves. And so I kind of like those quite a bit. I've been reading. I don't know if you guys know. Sure, I can do that here in a second. I've been reading this. If you guys don't know Joe Dispenza, right? I've been reading this book here quite a bit. I read it all the time, but I've read it a couple times. But I really recommend that. It breaks down a lot of the science of meditation and a lot of the science of manifestation. But it really comes down to just an energy balance, right? And attracting the right energies. People would talk about, or people have talked about, like the law of attraction, all of that. That book just kind of explains why those things even would work. And yeah, I love it. But I'll type those out right now while I wait for another question. And then after this, we can do a little 5-minute meditation together.
After you type those, I was wondering if you could explain if you do any, like you mentioned your visualization practice. So for somebody that's just starting out in visualizing, if you have a good kind of formula or like methodology we can use.
Sure, yeah. And we have these on our. I painted them on a canvas, and we put them up in the office, and people share them all the time. And they love it. So it's pretty. Um, what is the, so repeat that again? I'm sorry.
That's okay. Just with your visualization, like even when you were in sales and stuff, what's a good like methodology for somebody if it was a practice in the morning of visualization, like how, I guess the how around it. Like you said, gratitude, feeling gratitude, but like how do you get clear on something that you want?
I think that writing things down helps just so that way you know what you want to focus on. But the idea, so I'll speak to manifestation from that standpoint, because that's really the point of the visualization, is to like how do I make it happen. But the subconscious, like it's fantastic because it's always operating even when we don't know that it is. And when you set the right intention and you visualize how things are going to be or how you want them to be, then it tends to the subconscious tends to look for those answers even when you're not really aware of, as long as that intention is set properly. The one thing I like to say about that actually is that I forgot where I read this or who said this, but it was the idea that the mind wants to be right more than it wants to be successful. So a lot of the times it's like we're trying to prove ourselves right. And if we focus on the negative, we're going to prove ourselves right, even though we might be completely wrong, right? It even works with, I find parking spots like every single time, but it's also a visualization practice where you can just like visualize like how you're going to feel once you you're driving in the busiest of like an event, and you're just like, I'm just going to go to the front and I'm going to find a parking spot right in the front, and my friend that's with me, she's going to like scream and be like, dude, I can't believe you fucking got another parking spot again. And like we just high five and like it feels great, and you close the door, and then I'm just like, I always get it. I'm telling you, I always freaking get freaking parking spot. And so I visualize all that and how I'm feeling and how I'm just like, it just feels great. And like I hear the door like slam behind me because I'm just like, I closed it harder than I usually harder because I closed the door harder because because I'm excited that I found the parking spot once again. And then I visualized just the fact that like, it only took me like 10 steps to get to the event instead of having to walk like all the way down, and then seeing someone like walking from like that far, and just me thinking like, yeah, I didn't have to do that because I practiced my visualization. So all that goes into that moment of me like feeling that and visualizing it, because then your body's gonna like just prove it right. Now there's this other book called Maximum Achievement, and it talks about the science of about that. And when it comes down to parking spots, like there's plenty of evidence that shows that like in a given time, like or in a given area, there's X amounts of parking spots open. It's just that a lot of the things is that we tend to tell ourselves like, oh, it's so busy, like I'm never gonna find a parking spot. And then once again, we prove ourselves right and not find the parking spot, even though sometimes like it's right there. It's kind of like whenever you lose the keys, and at the end of the day, they were like right there. And just because like you just believe that, right? Like, and you create a block to prove yourself right, even though they might be like right there, even though that parking spot might be right there, even though like in a sales experience, like there's plenty of things I could have said to anyone that could have got them to buy a little bit more, or I could have got them to actually buy today instead of tomorrow, but I just didn't prove it to myself correctly for whatever reason. And a lot of times whenever, like I said, the last minute kind of situations where like I still hit the goal at the last minute, is because I did a second or a third sit to bring myself back, because I'm aware that at some point I must have like not believed it enough, and I wanted to go back. And whenever I did the sales, it was like literally feeling me flipping through the papers, like punching the calculator, adding all the different totals, and then how it would feel to then be like, hell yeah, I hit this, right? And the clearer you can be with that, then the more direction you give your subconscious to like just to bring it to life, because it's already there. It's the idea that it already exists. It's just a matter of attracting it. Yeah.
Thank you.
What else do we have? One should spend meditating per. Oh wait, let me go back. Okay, is there a specific amount of time one should spend meditating per day in order to receive the ultimate benefits? I don't know if there's an actual answer to that. Someone told me that 20 minutes a day, twice a day should be like ideal. Um, I'm doing about 30 minutes a day, twice a day, and then I'll do about 15 minutes during the day. But I don't think that it's necessarily the answer. I just think that that's what I've enjoyed now, and it's become a habit. I think more importantly is to create a habit of doing at least like 2 minutes, even if it's like, hey, I'm in a hurry, but like, you know what, I can take 2 minutes. And literally, I to this day I still set a timer, especially in the morning ones. I'm like, okay, 25 minutes or like 30 minutes. I want to sit down and do that. But just do it, because then you'll notice like 2 minutes go by pretty fast, and at some point it's like, well, I think I can start doing 5 minutes. And then just the idea of actually taking the time is more important than how much time you're taking. I think as you begin to love it and really understand how you're impacting your life through meditation, you'll just naturally want to do more, just because you will. It's just I've never told somebody you should do 10 minutes every day. It's always been more like, just at least take 1 minute, at least take 2 minutes to like recognize how your breathing is, recognize where your energy is, and then go from there. So yeah, I don't think that there's a specific amount that works, but I have heard some people reference, like they say 20 minutes a day, twice a day is what you need to do to get the ultimate benefits. But I wouldn't teach that myself, and I don't know that any of my mentors have ever taught specific numbers or time spans that work. That's just what has worked for me as far as lately. But I did a challenge last year where I was like, okay, I'm gonna do meditation every single day, and I did 10 minutes. And but like I said, today I did 2 minutes in the morning. I'm gonna do a longer one tonight, but it was just more of a, I just didn't really have a lot of time. Last year, because I was committed to do a whole year of it, I would have actually still taken the 10 minutes, because that was just the commitment that I made. But not this year. This year is like I gotta go. I'm gonna do this, and I kind of I'll just make it up tonight if I need to, or during my mid afternoon meditation. So you guys ready to do a little 5 minute, or is there another question?
Last chance. We can go ahead and do it.
All right, so I guess get in a comfortable position. By the way, don't worry too much about if you're not in the most comfortable position. By the way, yoga is a practice that's designed to, I don't know if you guys already know this or not, but yoga is a practice that's designed to, it's like an exercise and all that stuff, but it's really designed to get like all the kinks out of your body, so that way at the end of the yoga practice, you can sit down in the meditation and not have to worry about like, oh, I kind of feel a little bit off here. It's like you're supposed to like, that's what the yoga practice is all about. It's like, hey, I'm just trying to like make sure that I'm ready for this meditation. And it's, I don't know, that's an actual thing. But just get in a comfortable position. We're going to do the eyes closed and all that. And we're going to focus on some breath work. That's really the easiest thing you can do, is just focus on the breath work, because if I talked about earlier about how at least choose a thought that if your mind's going in so many different places that you choose to go back to. I think for me, counting helps. And it also helps from a certain aspect of like, you can trigger the parasympathetic by using a particular type of breathing technique, which involves counting in order to do that. But so let me explain this part first, and then we'll get into that. But the technique is we're going to be doing we're going to breathe in. We're going to inhale for four counts, and I'll count it for you, but don't worry about how long that is. Is that 4 seconds, or is that 4.5 seconds? Like, whenever you're doing this on your own, just pick however length that 4 is, whether that just be like, this, or it could be faster if you wanted to. Just make it where like, that's what your count is, and that's totally fine. it's really more about the ratios that help you get into a parasympathetic rate. And those ratios are, once again, you inhale for 4, you hold that breath for 7 counts, and then you release that breath for 8 counts slowly. So that's the longest is the parasympathetic activation is on the exhale. And then you hold it at the bottom of that once you're done exhaling for 2 counts before you inhale once again for 4 counts. So once again, it's 4, 7, 8, 2, 4, 7, 8, 2, 4, 7, 8, 2. Does that make sense? Cool. So you can cross your legs. You don't have to cross your legs. You can do it in a chair. You can like lay down. There's really no wrong way to meditate and to do all this. But so as we're doing that, if you want something else to focus on besides that, is besides the breath and the counting, then you might also want to focus on where you feel your energies. We have 7 main energies. One of them comes at your sit bones, right at the bottom. There's one at your bottom belly, one at your top of the belly. That one's wisdom, by the way. And then there's your heart. There's one in your throat. There's one kind of like in the back of your head, and then there's one right on the top. And then there's even one that's, once you become even more aware, there's even one that's about 6 inches above your head that you can tend to feel, and then you can even feel an aura emanating from there as well too, which is pretty cool. But don't worry too much about that. That's if you just have something else to think about. There's 7 different energy centers. It just means that you feel a little bit more pressure there. Yeah, close your eyes and just breathe regularly. We'll get into the 4-7-8 here in a second. So just keep breathing in. Think about just being anything that you're thankful about. Whether that be just a good day or a good grade or a good show that you saw, just anything that just feel grateful. Your dog, anything. So on your next exhale, just hold it there, and we'll start with the 2 at the bottom, where we're going to hold it for 2 seconds, and then we're going to breathe in for 4 counts. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and then we're going to exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 1, 2, and inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1, and hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to just continue this on your own. Give you guys a few seconds. I think that we all are very thankful for Ellie for putting this together. Continue your breath. Thankful for our bodies that are operating all the time on their own, taking care of us, repairing itself, taking nutrients out of anything we feed it. Thankful that it can just do that. Thankful that we can heal. In the same way, our bodies are thankful that we cared it to give it the tools, to give it the proper nutrition so it can be the most efficient, to take care of you, of your soul, of your energy, to create anything you want. to bring you peace, to be love, thankful for your awareness, thank you for your calmness, thankful for your existence. Hold your grace. Enjoy your presence. Feel your energy. Maybe wiggle your toes as you come back. Welcome to open your eyes now. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, any last words, please let me know.
Thank you so much, Baldo. That was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, please reach out anytime you guys want. Thank you. Yeah, if you guys don't know where to follow me, it's at TXMX Yogi, Tex-Mex Yogi. Please reach out. I'm pretty good about, like, at some point answering people. But thank you guys so much. Please follow up with me, and namaste.
Namaste. Thank you. This was awesome. All right, you guys. Thanks so much for joining. And yeah, connect with Baldo. He's got an awesome Instagram.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.